Hello again. I'm here with another 3 book reviews. This time I am reviewing Sleep Experiment by Jeremy Bates. I'm also reviewing Death Instinct by Bentley Little. I believe it's also called Evil Deeds, if I'm not mistaken. And I am reviewing Jaws, the Peter Benchley novel. So let's get to the intro and then I'll be right back. And I am back. So, let me review this Bentley Little book first. Let me read the directions. Let me read the synopsis here. Someone's moving into the slaughterhouse. Kathy was 6 when the man next door killed his wife and himself. It was an early morning and she was playing outside when she heard the first shot, and then another shot, and then another. The sounds echoed across the neighborhood like thunder. People came out of the houses to see what was happening. Later she saw the blood and the bodies. Now the house is no longer vacant. Someone has moved in. Something terrible is happening to the neighborhood. And Kathy has her secret of her own. Okay, so this is unique for a Bentley Little book. First off, it kind of doesn't have a supernatural element to it. It's basically about a killer. There's basically these people that come into this house. The one child has mentally challenged. I don't like how they use the R word a lot in this book, but it is an older book written in the 90s. So I could give it a little bit of slack. But it's basically about this woman who has this child, who has difficulties. And what they talk about here in this book is basically idiot savants, and this child is an idiot savant, but the idiot savant of murder. So he's basically able, even though he has like an autism type of, mentally challenged issue, he still can kill people. And like I said, it doesn't really deal with any kind of supernatural elements except for the fact that they have this idiot savant power that he has, and then you find out about his father, who also has a special talent, and of course the mother has a secret as well. And it's not a bad book. I'm not gonna say it's a bad book. I did have a lot of problems with the way they showed people who have autism and people who are mentally challenged. I did kind of have a problem with that in this book, but otherwise it wasn't a bad book, and it was interesting because it was different for a Bentley Little book, because it wasn't a book that had a big supernatural element connected to it. It was basically just about these idiot savants. All in all, though, like I said, it did bother me a little bit, but in all in all, I don't think it was a bad book, but it wasn't like one of my favorite Bentley Littles. It was a little different, so it was kind of interesting to read. But again, all in all, it wasn't one of my favorite Bentley Little books. So I would give it on an average rating. If you're interested in Bentley Little, you might want to read this, but be warned that there are some issues in the book, especially if you are sensitive to the mentally challenged. And like I said, some of the stereotypes that they throw in here, which I didn't like. Okay, next book I'm going to talk about is Jaws. I love the movie Jaws. I must have seen the movie about a dozen times, and when I saw the Jaws, actually the audiobook is free on I guess you have the Audible Plus. So I said, oh well, I'll listen to the audiobook, and I did. And I will honestly tell you, if you have seen the movie Jaws, you don't need to read the book. And you have read the book, I mean, if you have seen the movie and you don't want to read the book, or if you haven't read the book, don't read the book and see the movie, is what I'm saying. Because this book, in my mind, is such a pale comparison to the Jaws movie. The movie is so much better than the book. Let me actually read what it says here. Um, when Peter Benchley wrote Jaws in the early 70s, he meticulously researched all available data about behavior. Over the ensuing decade, Benchley was actively engaged with scientists and filmmakers on expeditions around the world as they expanded their knowledge of sharks. Also, during this time, there was an unprecedented upswing in the number of shark killings to make the shark fin soup, and Benchley worked with governments and nonprofits to sound the alarm for shark conservation. He encouraged each new generation of Jaws fans to enjoy his riveting tale and to channel their excitement into support and protection of these magnificent prehistoric apex predators. This edition of Jaws contains bonus content from Peter Benchley's archives, including the original typed title page, a brainstorming list of possible titles, letters from Benchley to producer with honest feedback on the movie adaptation, and excerpts from his book Shark Trouble, highlighting his first-hand account of writing Jaws, selling it to Universal Studios, and working with Steven Spielberg. Okay. I'm going to give you, I guess, some spoilers for Jaws, the movie, talking about this book, because this book has some weird turns. First off, Hooper and Brody's wife have an affair in this book. There's a whole big storyline in this book, basically about kind of like a rich and poor, have and have not type of story, where Brody's wife came from a wealthy family who used to visit summers in this town, in this little island, this little summer town, and that Brody was a family, kind of like the poor families who basically always stayed in the town. And when she married him, was she settling down, was she, and that kind of whole thing. When she meets Hooper, who is supposedly another rich guy, who's a real jerk in this book. He's horrible in this book. She starts, fantasizing about him. She dated his brother, I guess. And then they meet somewhere at a diner, and she starts talking about rape fantasies with him. I mean, it was uncomfortable to even read, to be honest with you. And like I said, he was just a total idiot, just totally into, as soon as he found out that she wanted him, he basically didn't even care and just went right with her. He in the book, Hooper actually agrees with the mayors and with the people to bring the beaches back open, and then of course there's another attack when the beaches come back open, and Hooper agreed with that. Not like the movie at all. There are a couple of good scenes that were in the movie that are in the book that are pretty much, it's kind of nice to read the book version. But like I said, that whole thing about Hooper and the fact that he had sex with Brody's wife, then he basically is an idiot because he actually does tell them to open the beaches even though the shark actually winds up still being there. The whole concept about them going out and staying out and trying to actually beat this shark, that's not in the book. It's basically Quint, Hooper, and Brody go out every single day and keep going after shark, and the shark coming back at night. Both Hooper and Quint die in the book instead of what happens in the movie. Again, and like I said, Hooper is a total jerk. So you actually are happy when he dies. He's a total jerk. They don't have the stress. They don't have the whole beating of the radio. You don't have them trapped out there type of thing. I mean, you do have them trapped, but it's nothing like the movie at all. In fact, the movie had way more tension, way more cohesive story, as far as like just he was a shark and they just had to stop it. Like I said, Quint was a better character in the movie than he was in the book. I didn't even like Brody in this book. Honestly, thank God they made the movie, because if I would have read this book, I might not have liked it. I might have said, "Oh my God, this is such a horrible book." It's amazing what the movie's done. To be honest with you, it's amazing how well the movie is better than the book. The book also has some anti-gay slurs in it. It was written in the early 70s, so I can't blame it. But I mean, I know it's got a lot of high reviews here, but honestly, I am not one of them. I would strongly suggest, if you're interested in Jaws at all, check out the movie. It is a far superior uh, piece of entertainment than the book was, and I was sadly disappointed with this book and glad I didn't have to pay for it. So that's my really nasty review about Jaws the novel and Death Instinct. Now I'm going to actually talk about a book I liked, um, which is The Sleep Experiment. This is by Jeremy Bates. This is on Kindle Unlimited. If you want to read more Jeremy Bates books, if you want to read more Jeremy Bates books that are free or part of a service, you can go to Scribd. They actually have a lot more Jeremy Bates books. I believe this is the only one that Kindle Unlimited has. But let me read the review here. Let me read the synopsis. In 1954, at the start of the Cold War, the Soviet military offered 4 political prisoners their freedom if they participated in an experiment requiring them to remain awake for 14 days while under the influence of a powerful stimulant gas. The prisoners ultimately reverted to murder, self-mutilation, and madness. None survived. In 2018, Dr. Roy Wallace, an esteemed psychology professor at the UC Berkeley, is attempting to recreate the same experiment during the summer break in a soon-to-be demolished building on campus. He and 2 student assistants share an 8-hour rotational schedule to observe their young Australian test subjects around the clock. What begins innocently enough, however, morphs into a nightmare beyond description that no one could have imagined, perhaps the exception of Dr. Roy Wallace himself. I really like this book. From reading this book, I honestly started reading more of Jeremy Bates. I have later on reviews. I'll probably review some more of his books. This was a story that built. It started up nice way of characterizing these characters and giving them all backstory, especially the doctor, especially how he's kind of basically a womanizing kind of a driven a little quirky kind of guy. You find out more and more about him, how dark he really is. You find out, the what happens in the experiments. You find out what he thought about was going to happen in the experiments, and more, it just becomes really a dark story, and it's just really interesting. Honestly, I could give this. I wouldn't say I'd give it a 5-star, but it's definitely a good 4-star read. I don't believe it's that long. Yeah, 255 pages, so it's a very short book as well. It packs a lot of punch in this short story, and I just like it. It's original. It's not, your typical kind of story. It doesn't, it's not a ghost story. It's not a slasher story. It's kind of just like, people are kept awake for, I think he wants it for like 2 weeks or something like that. I forget how long he wants to keep people awake, but they basically break like a Guinness Book of World Records of how long somebody stayed awake. And they talk about how people, start going into psychosis and start having hallucinations when they stay awake. And he has this gas that he created to keep people awake, and it's really, really interesting. And again, it actually does get a little supernatural near the end, but it's just a well done, very tense, very building type of horror. It's like it starts slow, and it's slowly but surely, as they stay up longer and longer, you start seeing more and more weird stuff that they say, more weird stuff that they do, more crazy stuff that the doctor does when it seems like the experiment is unraveling, what he goes through and what he does, and his relationships with the people around him. It's just, I can't really talk about it enough. It's just a really good story in my mind, and I just really enjoyed it. And that's The Sleep Experiment by Jeremy Bates. If you've sat through this entire video, I just want to say again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.